I'm a UFC head. Like seriously.
Okay.
I'm gonna follow you. I should have followed you already when we did this if I wasn't already. Let me see. Um, yeah, I'll definitely check that shit out, man. I love MMA. It is just
It's,
it's been like since like UFC 22 or something. I've like not missed a UFC event. So
well, I'll send
Oh
it to you.
man, I just pulled the open bar on you guys. We're live right now. We've been live for like
Hey.
30 seconds. What's up, guys?
oh,
Welcome
shit,
on
What's
in.
up?
mushrooms. Ho ho ho.
Yeah, man, we got fantasy intervention on deck. We got, of course, our DFS episode. And with me today, I brought in a couple of guests. I've got Scott, Nimblewood Numbers. What's going on, Scott? How you doing tonight, man?
Excited to be here, Chase. Thanks for inviting me in. It's going to be a great time talking DFS. I mean, where would I rather be on a Friday night talking fantasy, right?
Dude, there's no other place I'd rather be than talking DFS fantasy on a Friday night. That's just how it is, man.
Oh man,
This is what I love.
I'm rock
I've had
hard.
enough of the partying and stuff. Yeah, I'm a little hard too. Like I'm not like full chub yet because we haven't gotten going yet. I'm just getting warmed up, but you know I'm at a half chub. And then of course I've got Nathan in here with us. What's going on, Nathan? How are you?
Not much, guys. I'm happy to be here. I mean, you guys keep talking about how excited you are. Meanwhile, I'm sitting here looking like I'm on a casting couch or something. So here we go.
Oh, I love it. I absolutely love it. The casting couch. God,
Oh yeah,
this
it's
is gonna
about
be
to
a great
get
episode.
crazy.
All right, so there is a little bit of discrepancy for this episode. I want to forewarn everybody. We do have a little bit of a twist, and I'm not exactly sure how DraftKings and FanDuel are going to handle this. As of right now, we still have the Arizona Cardinals and the Seattle Seahawks. They're still on the main slate right now. Meanwhile, the Sunday night game got moved to 4 o'clock, and that was who was it? Tampa Bay and the Raiders, right?
Yeah.
So
Well, the whole Raiders offensive line is in quarantine. So
yeah, I know. And the game's still going to go on. They're still, getting ready to play it. They wanted to move it just in case they did have to cancel the game. They'd still have a Sunday night game because the ratings are obviously through the roof on Sunday night. So as of right now, it's still a go. It's still a complete go for this slate to happen. And I don't think that they would actually take that team out because, I mean, this is a juicy matchup. It's the Arizona Cardinals and Seattle Seahawks, right? So I'm pretty sure that they're going to end up leaving this one in. Am I correct? What do you guys think?
Yeah, no, that's the word on the street. You know, I tweeted out as soon as I heard that the NFL was flexing the game, an angry GIF of me like breaking something or something because that was one of my favorite plays on the slate, running it back, particularly looking for value in that game. There's some underpriced receivers, things like that were getting me excited, and then I didn't know that they were going to keep it on. And then when word broke, yesterday that they were, I was elated. I was just like, oh man, thank God. So as of right now, that is the word we're getting in the DFS community. Hopefully it sticks and it stays because here's what I think that both of them want to do. I think, we're talking more DraftKings here, but I think both platforms are trying to leverage and get as many people into their contests. And if you take out two or one of the best games, two of the best matchups on paper, at least, man, that's just going to set you back and have kind of people like me who are marks and people who love DraftKings just kind of pissed, kind of just discouraged. So I think they're trying to keep the customers happy. That's kind of my take on it. Hope it works out. Hope it stays that way because, man, what a great game.
Yeah, and I just want to add on, inversely, there's no talks about moving the Patriots and the Raiders into that slot either, which is great because whenever you look at those teams, you don't see as many like fantasy relevant players. So you start looking at them, the entire offensive line's out, so you can't look at Josh Jacobs. And just Patriot games in general, they're just kind of crapshoots. You never know what you're going to get with them sometimes.
Yeah, it's going to be the Buccaneers, of course, the Buccaneers and Raiders. So this is something where you can still play the independent games. It's just not going to have any featured contests, I don't think. But either way, let's go ahead and dive into this main slate for Sunday. And check out this episode. Sorry, I'm trying to retweet and share our things so we can get everybody in on this, so everybody can know. Now, this is weird, right? It was a weird week last week in week 6 for the Millie Maker lineup. Typically, you want to try and get your ownership right around 15%. That's usually where maximizes. For week 6. Week 5, it was at like 14%. So that's right where you want to be. That's the sweet spot. Meanwhile, last week, it was down at like 8% or something along those lines. Yeah, it was like 8% ownership. So it was a very, very unique lineup. And that's not the way that we actually want to go about this. This is what we call chasing the dragon, right? He had one chalk player with Derrick Henry, and everybody else was pretty much like flyers. Like they were pretty much like, low floor, high upside guys. And typically that's what you want from tournaments. But when it comes to flyers, that's not what you're looking for. So I know it's kind of like impossible to know exactly what the ownership is going to be moving forward, but there's tools out there to help you make educated guesses as to where the ownership's going to be. So like I said, that sweet spot is like 15%. There's multiple ways you can do that. You can either, keep your entire lineup with low own projections outside of maybe like 2 guys or maybe 3 guys. Typically it's like a running back and a tight end that you go towards with the chalk. And if you do 3 of them, then, it's sometimes the quarterback. The other way is you can actually go with all guys projected to be in that 5 to 20% range. Normally, you'll end up sharing some other lineups with people when you end up going that route. My favorite personally is to go mostly like 5 to 20% and then do 1 chalk player and 1 flyer. There's also, the one that you won with Scott, which was the double stack TE, right? That's where you won $5,000.
Yeah.
So
I think you're always looking for ways to make your lineup unique in those GPPs. Particularly when we're going up against, hundreds of thousands of lineups, or if you're the Millie Maker, thousands of lineups. I think you're looking for those guys who are going to be studs, like you said, but you need to surround them with players that aren't going to be chalk, because if you don't hit, then you're way out of the money. You're dusty, and so you want to have, like you said, that ownership. Here's the good thing so far. So the numbers always are changing, and I know we'll talk about some of the numbers and see. We have different sources. I'll share my sources where I get my numbers from, and I've got my tool up here that I've got, and so we'll look at for this slate where ownership's going to be. I can tell you where I know ownership's going to be already with some of the injuries that are out there, and so we'll get into the game breakdown for sure. But there's a funneling that's happening, and so we're going to have to kind of look at all sides of this and see where all those value plays, where the plays you have to smash, and people are just going to play those players, and where can you vary and make your lineup unique and give yourself some upside.
Yeah, variance is going to be key, obviously, and finding those guys that you actually want to, pretty much die your sword on, or whatever it's called. What's that called? Fall on your sword for? Those guys.
Die on
those
the hill.
Guys.
Fall on your sword.
Yeah, that's I mixed up the two. But yeah,
hey, you're bringing them together. You're bringing worlds. Yeah, you don't want to go
on the sword.
You want to fight on the hill, and then you die on it. You die. It's fine. You still
die on your sword.
Yeah, on the hill.
No, absolutely. So these guys are certain guys that we're going to want to be keeping an eye on, and that's kind of where we want to surround our lineups with, right? Like we're going to pick certain matchups that we believe are going to be high scoring, and we're going to build those stacks, those quarterback, wide receiver stacks, those, defense and those running back stacks. We're going to build those, right? And that's what we're going to base the, primary focus of our lineups on. So the first game that I want to talk about, right? And there's a bunch of them this week, not as many as there has been over the past few weeks, but there's still a good amount of them that we can, really chase after. One of them, the primary one, being the Seahawks and Cardinals. That's a 56-point over-under. So that's I believe huge. It's the second highest scoring point total on the week when it comes to the over-under. And most likely this is going to be the chalk game, unless, like we talked about, DraftKings moves it out, but I don't see that happening. Lots of ownership across the board on this one. Are you guys going to eat the chalk this week, or are you guys going to avoid it and hope that it blows up? We'll start with you, Nathan.
I definitely think there's some guaranteed value. Seahawks have given up a ton of yards over the air. So kind of what you were talking about, I definitely like Kyler Murray into this one. Some of the other flyers that I'm really looking at stack into that one, I still think Christian Kirk is going to be a good play for fantasy this week. He's been hit or miss for most of the season. Last week, he only had 3 targets, but with those 3 targets, he had 86 yards and 2 touchdowns. He has one of the highest depth per targets in the entire NFL this year. So with the Seattle defense, they're giving up some more big plays. And with Jamal Adams still being out, I think, a couple of stacks. I really like Kyler Murray. I like Christian Kirk. I still think Larry Fitzgerald might be a low ownership guy in that. So you can pick him up. I think there's going to be opportunities for him in the middle of the field this week.
It's maddening. It's maddening how they're using Christian Kirk as a deep threat guy. He's a slot wide receiver, and they're using him as a deep threat for some reason instead of Andy Isabella. It is absolutely maddening. And Larry Fitzgerald is a good play. We'll talk about it here in a second. But Larry Fitzgerald is a good play in cash games, but you got to stay away from in tournaments. The volume just isn't there. The upside isn't there. But Scott, are you going to eat the chalk in this one?
I think with Kyler Murray, you kind of need to. And, what you've seen over the course of this year, I have a DraftKings tool that I use on my website that I kind of just have all the data in. Kyler Murray is the second ranked quarterback by points, and he's only 0.3 behind Josh Allen. So, I mean, he's 164 points. He's right there. He's last 4 games, 24, 26, 28. And the first 2 games were 27-33. So, he's been consistent. I know that he's now getting his other receivers involved. Yes, it's the Dallas Cowboys, but I'm buying into Kyler Murray. I think he will be in some of my lineups, cash and GPPs. I think he's that viable this week.
Yeah, I think he's a cash lock for sure. In tournaments, I'm going to take some shots with it. Now, this is where I'm going. This is where I'm going with my lineups from this game. I think you really got to find a couple stacks in here. But where do you go with the stacks? Because Byron Murphy has actually been really good so far this season when the cards go to nickel, right? Byron Murphy, he's the outside guy, but then he slides into the slot when they go to nickel, which doesn't happen a lot. There's a few guys, and there's one that's coming up that we're going to talk about here in a minute, but there's not a lot of guys that play outside and they go to the slot. Typically, they stay on the outside. He goes to the slot. Meanwhile, yeah, Patrick Peterson, and I was watching him closely match up against the Cowboys because I was very interested how Patrick Peterson was actually going to cover Amari Cooper. Amari Cooper was on the right side of the field where Patrick Peterson lines up until the 4th quarter. And then something clicked, and they're like, oh, shit, we need to get Amari Cooper away from Patrick Peterson because Patrick Peterson was shutting him down. He wasn't able to do anything. They moved him over to the left side of the field. Patrick Peterson did not shadow, which was very interesting for me. I thought he was going to come to that side of the field. He didn't shadow. He stayed on the right-hand side of the field, and he covered Michael Gallup, screwing Michael Gallup's value, by the way, towards the tail end of the contest. I'm still pissed off about it. I'm still pissed. But no, he didn't shadow. So I'm curious if Peterson is going to shadow DK Metcalf in this one, right? DK plays the majority of his snaps on the left-hand side of the field. And like I said, Peterson's normally on the right-hand side of the field, so he might not cover DK Metcalf, but I don't think that'd be a smart play because now Kirkpatrick is on the injury report. So you're going to sit there and you're going to play a backup corner, the 3rd string corner, by the way, 4th string corner, because the 3rd string corner is Kirkpatrick. So you're going to play a 4th string corner up against Metcalf? I don't know, man. He's either going to get bracketed coverage or he's going to see Peterson. Now, all you need for Metcalf is like 6 catches anyways, and he'll give you 120 yards and 2 touchdowns. So, he still has that upside to an extent, but I think he's going to be chalk, and I think you can end up seeing Peterson. Now, what do you guys think about that? Are you guys playing Metcalf?
Nathan, I'll defer to you to start, and then I can come in and close if you want.
Yeah, so DK is never a bad play. That's just a fact of the nature. DK is never a bad play. My only concern with him is I think he's going to have a rather high usage rate because he is never a bad play. I think people are going to be looking at this matchup, looking at turn to this matchup. And do I think he is going to play to the level where he makes up for that usage rate? Me personally, I don't. I think he's going to be a good play. I think he's going to be viable, but in order to cover up that ground that you need from that guy, yeah, he's going to have a high usage, but if you don't play him, you're going to just be falling down the ranks. I don't think we're going to see quite that level of performance because of different coverage schemes with him. And also, Russell Wilson does like to distribute the ball a little bit. I think he's going to dish it out. I think they're going to try and get Chris Carson more involved. And for that reason, I like him. I don't love him enough to really see him as a guy I need to have in my lineup this week.
And he's pricey too, isn't he? He's expensive.
Yeah, he's 7,200. I mean, that's he should be. He should be priced up there.
Yeah, that's the 5th most expensive wide receiver on the slate this week. I'm hoping that DK Metcalf implodes and destroys, 20% of the lineups out there.
I love that. I think that's a great play. Yeah, no, I'm all over that too. I think I think Tyler Lockett's the play for me in GPPs particularly. I think if you're looking for that cash steady floor, yeah, you're getting 6 targets probably for Metcalf, and I think Peterson is on him. I think he's stronger than Patrick Peterson. I think he outmuscles him. I think he outbodies him. So I'm not saying Peterson doesn't deflect a few balls or get in his face and doesn't break up a few passes, but I think Metcalf gets the better of that matchup overall. But I think Tyler Lockett stands to benefit, and I think you move him around in the slot. That's what you have with a flexibility of the slot. It can be on either side of the field. You can bring him, from the short hash all the way to the long side of the field to do crossing routes, whatever you want to do with him. The touchdown he did against the Dallas Cowboys, I saw it. You saw Russell Wilson in real time figure out where they're playing zone, where they're playing man in that coverage, run a little, motion before the snap. And the next thing you know, Lockett's alone in the corner of the end zone. I really think that they're going to scheme him up. Yeah, it's ridiculous. So I think this is going to be a good game for Lockett. That's my play. By the way, I am a big DK Metcalf guy. Came out this year and said I thought he was going to outscore Lockett. He was going to be the wide receiver one on that team, and I bet my co-host on my pod that. So, but I just in this game, I think he has a ceiling, and I don't think that the same ceiling applies to Lockett.
So I will say, I'll get onto that in a second, but I do want to answer Bo McBigtime's question, just in case you guys didn't hear. Why hasn't the game been taken off the main slate yet? And we think it's because there's probably so many contests that are involved in this that it would end up pissing off a bunch of people, and they would have to refund a bunch of different people that have entered in players for the Cardinals. So I think they're going to leave it in there. I think it's pretty much a lock for them to leave it in there. Now,
well, that's the thing. All those lineups that people built already, you're going to have to go back in if you're going to use the generator. Yeah, that's just ridiculous. So I think they're respecting their customers' money and what they had picked. And I mean, that's simple stuff, man. I hope.
And to go with that too, it's a little bit simpler too than just a canceled or a postponed game, because those you just have to obviously take out the slate. The game is still going on. I mean, at the end of the day, the game is still going on. People already set up the lineups. On the back end of things, you have to recode everything and set up all these lineup parameters. From DraftKings' point of view, it's just simpler and easier for them to leave it in as well. The game's still going on.
Yep.
Right.
So let's talk about Lockett real quick.
Long day.
Let's talk about Lockett real quick. All right, because Lockett does have Murphy over there, and Byron Murphy has been an absolute monster over there in the slot. He's been shutting down, like he shut down CeeDee Lamb, for example, this past week for the majority of the time. I mean, he's just shutting down everybody. Now, I do understand where you're coming from when you talked about Scott. That is when you talked about him getting open from either broken plays or from scheme passes. But honestly, I think Murphy is one of the best slot corners in the NFL, and he's young too. He's young. So my play, the pivot that I'm actually going to, right? I'm not playing Metcalf. I'm not playing Lockett. But what about David Moore? Right? David Moore could actually be a guy who could see one-on-one coverage with, I don't remember what the guy's name is. I don't have it in here in my notes. But the cornerback that's coming in, the 4th-string cornerback that's coming in, he's had a pretty subpar showing when he does come in the game. So I'm thinking, honestly, Moore could actually have that game that we've seen out of him in the past years where he's getting like 2 touchdowns. And if it's not him, what about Freddie Swain? Right? They're both super cheap options.
That's a deep dive, the Swainster. Yeah, that would be a really good value there.
One's 3 and one's 31. So
that's a great value.
Both these guys could end up seeing like a 2 touchdown type performance, and you're going to get a payoff if they get you 1 touchdown. Hell, if they get you 2 catches for like 10 yards, that's hitting their value.
Yeah. So, no, I agree. I think this game shoots too, so you want to have pieces in this that are going to be contrarian.
And if he, let's just say that Freddie Swain or Moore, right? If they get 2 touchdowns in this matchup, you are now destroying all the ownership on Tyler Lockett and on DK Metcalf. Now, Chris Carson can still get his if they get 4 touchdowns, 5 touchdowns, whatever the case is. But I mean, the reality is with Russell Wilson dropping back and looking for a receiver, he ended up finding David Moore. He ended up finding Freddie Swain, which means that this percentage of targets, the target premium, is going to drop for DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett. I like it. And I think that Carson's a play too.
Yeah. I think Carson's going to be a guy who gets 2 touchdowns rushing the football. I mean, that he is underplayed in fantasy. He's not. Last year, I had him in fantasy, and he was a monster. He was just rushing the ball all the time. They've shifted their offense. They've played bad defenses, so they've been able to exploit. They've also had their defense, be exploited. But he's catching targets too. Yeah, I love him to pop this week as well. He's not my top, 5 running back, but he's in my top 10. He's somebody I'm considering this week for sure.
Yeah, and since we're going on, just naming Seattle weapon after Seattle weapon, I think he's only $500 more than David Moore is Greg Olsen. I mean, Russell Wilson likes throwing to the tight end. He's already had games of 7, 6, and 4 targets, which is more than David Moore's ever had in a game. So I think he's also somebody that I think he's going to be a low usage rate player. Go ahead and pull on a Greg Olsen. I mean, Arizona is not the best against tight ends. I think he's a good, viable play for this week. Again, going to be a red zone threat. I think he's another guy that could slip in there and really be a difference maker for your lineup this week.
Yeah, I thought Dalton Schultz was actually going to have a good game up against him this past week because they've actually been pretty good up against tight end so far, but they did allow Hawkinson to have, or who was it? No, it was Jesse James to have a good game. Hawkinson had an all right game, but overall they've actually been pretty stout. So I don't know if Greg Olsen, with the tight end matchups that we have on the slate this week, will offer you the opportunity to get, those 2 touchdowns, those 3 touchdown games, like you could see out of guys like Jonnu Smith or Hawkinson this week could be another one. So for cash games, I feel great with Greg Olsen. For tournament games, I'm staying away from him. But back to Chris Carson, the Cardinals have allowed every running back so far to get at least 97 yards on the ground against him.
Oh,
right? That's crazy.
That's a lot.
That's the least. The least amount of yards was against the Jets. That was 97 yards on the ground. I'm telling you guys, this is a Chris Carson game, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm still going to sit there and play a DJ or a David Moore with him or a Freddie Swain. Now my stack. This is my stack. My stack isn't going with Wilson. My stack is on the other side. I want Kyler Murray in this game. The Seattle Seahawks have allowed multiple touchdowns in every matchup outside the Dolphins and have allowed over 300 yards in every game except for the Vikings. And they're letting quarterbacks run too. They're letting quarterbacks get yards. Kyler Murray's a smash this week, right? I mean, he's going to hammer it home. He's going to get in a touchdown. And I don't even know if I'm going to be playing Hopkins. Yeah, let your mind sizzle on that one.
I think Hopkins is going to get a lot of targets. I think you're just going to have to pay for that. I think cash game is where I think he's going to be makes the most sense. Tournament wise, it's a lot to pay up. But he has to really get those 2 touchdowns. And I mean, not that he can't, he definitely could. But I think Kyler steals one from everybody on his feet. He likes to dance in there. He likes to roll out.
How many lineups are going to have Jamal Williams, Giovanni Bernard, and DeAndre Hopkins in there?
And Alvin Kamara in the flex.
How many teams are going to have that lineup? That's going to be pretty much the chalk of the slate. It's got to be.
I mean, I'll do some of those in cash though, because in cash, you're just trying to hit that midpoint. So I mean, maybe not in single head-to-heads, but for me, I do the big $100 double up every week in the DraftKings, and I've been 3-1 so far, which has been good. But I got to get back on. So some of those plays, Alvin Kamara, goodness gracious, he's going to be 100% owned by everybody. That guy is just going to be chalky, chalk. So
and I think he's worth it too. But what do you think, Nathan? Yep. Are you sitting there? Are you going to play Hopkins in tournaments this week? Or are you gonna kind of fade him a little bit?
So I like Hopkins. One of my concerns right now, this is, I can see it going one of 2 ways. Is Kyler Murray is one of the lowest ranked quarterbacks in terms of yards per attempt. So that's something I do think is notable. However, he does like distributing the ball to DeAndre Hopkins a lot. But with that said, I kind of see this game going. I think Arizona might fall behind a little bit early, partly because they're not going to try and take advantage of some of Seattle's weaknesses. When it comes to DeAndre Hopkins, he's a guy that I like. He's a guy that I don't love. I think there's some value that we could get further down the road for a cheaper price and get 90-95% of the same production on him.
Now, with that being said, right, he might be one of the lowest in average depth target, but he actually has the 6th most deep ball attempts in the NFL so far this year for the quarterback position. They're taking shots deep, and that's one of the reasons why I'm actually not going with Hopkins, right? The Cowboys figured out a way to slow down Hopkins for the majority of the game. He only ended up having like 2 catches on 8 targets. And that's what you want when you play Hopkins. You want that 10 receptions on 16 targets type game. And now he has to be matched up against Quentin Dunbar this week, who, by the way, was ranked as the second best cornerback last year by PFR. And Hopkins is dealing with an ankle injury as well. Now, why the hell the Washington football team traded away Quentin Dunbar for a 5th-round pick is beyond me. That is just,
oh my gosh,
stupid. But this Quentin Dunbar lines up exclusively on the offense's left-hand side of the field. These are Hopkins snaps. On the right side, outside, 31 snaps. On the right slot, 20 snaps. On the left slot, 62 snaps. And then the left outside, 264 snaps. He's only on the outside, on the left outside. That's pretty much where he exclusively lines out. Right across from Quentin Dunbar, who's been a beast this year. I'm hoping that he pulls like that DK Metcalf type thing and completely bombs this week. You know, he's going to have to, at his price, he's going to have like 3 touchdowns, maybe 2 touchdowns and 120 yards in order for him to actually be worth it. And his ownership, by the way, projected by RotoWire, as the highest wide receiver, even at his price, and the 5th highest player on this slate. I'm telling you guys, I don't think he's the one to own. I got another guy for you. And then I'll let you go ahead and slide in right after this. I called Andy Isabella going off a few weeks ago. Scott, was that the show you were on with me, or was that Rosalie?
Yes. No, you did. Yeah, I heard you. That was a great call.
I'm calling it again this week.
Ooh.
Last week, he had 2 or 3 deep down the field targets that he missed Andy Isabella by inches. So it was part on Andy Isabella not able to get underneath the ball, but still he had him open for 2 touchdowns and probably about 120 yards, just like we were talking about with DeAndre Hopkins, but only on 2 targets. Flowers is getting burned in the slot. So I'm sure they're going to try and line up Andy Isabella up against Trey Flowers quite a few times. While in coverage, Flowers has allowed 16 receptions on 19 targets for 228 yards.
Oh, damn. That's terrible.
The touchdowns are coming up against Griffin, but the Flowers is getting crushed on these deep targets, man, from the slot position. And that's what Andy Isabella is. That's what he does. Like we talked about earlier, I like Fitzgerald for cash, but Isabella is the DFS play.
You know what's crazy is I like what you're saying. If you look across the board, this is what the Seattle Seahawks are giving up per position. So wide receiver ones are giving up 23.7 fantasy points, which is terrible. To wide receiver twos, they're per game, average per game 23.7 to the wide receiver one. Just that's a one-on-one matchup. That's Flowers. That's your boy Flowers, right? Shaquille Griffin is giving up 13 fantasy points a game. And then, between Blair and Amudi, or however you say his name is, 16.1 fantasy points he's giving up, or that spot's giving up. That is so many fantasy points a game. That is 61 over 62 fantasy points a game to wide receivers you're playing. I think Andy Isabella is primed to pop, dude. I think you're exactly right in this. It's bad across the board, but it can be particularly bad for players who are going downfield, and that's what Andy Isabella is great at. So I think your call is good. Helicopter, another Chase Vernon helicopter shot this weekend. I'm with you, buddy. I'm going to play him.
I think you said it all. I mean, there's really just not much to add there. I think you're a lock on Isabella. I still think Kirk has some value, but I don't think he's going to be able to take advantage of that Dunbar matchup that you keep referencing. So I think you're 100% on this one.
Yeah, that's Hopkins, by the way, matchup against Dunbar. We got Shaquille Griffin up against Christian Kirk. That's going to most likely be the setting. So let's go to the running backs. I don't know if Drake or Edmonds has enough value to play either guy this week. Seattle's been decent. They're not great, but they've been decent up against pass catching running backs up until last week, by the way. Teams couldn't even run on them up until last week. So I don't know, man. I'm sitting here and I'm going to be fading these running backs, even with Edmonds lining up in the slot 40 different snaps so far this season. Are you guys playing either running back?
I personally am not. I mean, I think Chase Edmonds offers a little bit more upside, but he's been creeping up in price each week, and for the price that he's coming in this week, I don't think he's going to be the play to have.
I'll take that.
I agree. Yeah, I'm right with Nathan. I agree that. I mean, I'm a not a Drake believer. I'm not a big Drake guy. I don't own a lot of stock in Drake, and so I think I would be more invested in Edmonds if I was, but I think I can get better plays.
I'll take that. I'm right on the same page, right around the same price range. We have multiple guys who I'd much rather play. All right, so let's see. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to say that my final stack here, I don't think that you have to stack 2 wide receivers with Kyler Murray. His rushing upside alone gives him almost independent value, but I am going to play Kyler Murray, Andy Isabella, and I'm running it back with Carson and either Metcalf for like a big time play if I want to, but I'm probably going to stay away from that for the most part. I'm going to go Moore or Swain to run it back with. I want to say Moore or Swain if it's not a contrarian lineup. This will let you play some really high price guys. I actually already did a lineup with those guys in it just because I wanted to see how sick it would be. And pretty much all the rest of those guys are like top 10 at the position. That's with Travis Kelce in there too. It's
like a wide receiver 1.
Yeah, it's sexy. All right, so the Falcons, right? Our next game is the Falcons and Lions. Well, Lions at the Falcons with a 55-point over-under. The Falcons are 31st in explosive plays from the passing game. Now, most of the starters in the secondary are actually healthy right now. I think their only guy out is Kazi, I believe, or Kazi, however you say his name. And then, of course, whoever it was that got hurt in the preseason. But yeah, most of the starters are healthy. The only good starter on this team is actually Ricardo Allen, but that's only because he's played 2 games. Defenses, they can find a way to exploit that, and start to, do some research on beating Ricardo Allen. Listen, I called Stafford last week, but I didn't expect the Jags to be that bad on offense. Like, they were absolutely terrible. And I don't think the Falcons are actually physically capable of being as bad as the Jags were on offense. So, I don't know, man. I'm sitting there and I'm leaning towards Matt Stafford again. The Falcons have allowed every quarterback they faced to get over 300 yards passing, including Kirk Cousins last week, who also had 3 touchdowns. Isaiah Oliver, he slides in the slot when they go nickel. It doesn't matter. They've all been terrible. What's y'all's take on this? Who do you guys want to play? Because I'm leaning Marvin Jones Jr. as a roster wrecker, just like I was with Andy Isabella.
I'm going to jump in here, Nathan. Sorry if you were ready to go. I was thinking about this.
Sorry to cut you off, but I'm not sorry at all. I'm just going to do it.
I was thinking about this. This was a true thought I had today when I was emptying the dishes. And, as a man in my home, I do chores all the time. And one of my chores every day is the dishes. And when you got 4 people living at home, you tune them all the fucking time. All the live long day. You can edit that, right? Anyway,
you say fucking time all you want. I say fucking all the time on here. Why would you think I would?
Oh man, it's fucking annoying. Just fucking just. But anyway,
you're a teacher, man.
I know. I can't say that. But anyway, so I'm thinking this game is gonna pop. I'm looking at the implied total up there, and I'm thinking, man, where's Marvin Jones been this year? And then I went back and looked at some of his stats. He does this. It's one of the things he does.
Yeah.
He disappears. He's like a mirage in the desert for like 2 or 3 days. And then the next thing you know, he comes out of nowhere, man, and he gets you 2 touchdowns, 130 yards, 9 catches. This could be the game he does that. I mean, if you're going to real contrarian, you can Amendola, but I don't think he can scoot and scat fast enough to get away from anybody to take, 3 or 4 catches to the house or get a one-on-one deep matchup. Him and the linebacker will tackle each other downfield if they get there. So I'm not big on Amendola necessarily if I'm going to go big. If I want a floor in this game for Amendola, I like that more of a cash play. But, man, yeah, Marvin Jones could be the nuts. He really could, Chase.
What do you think, Nathan?
Yeah, so you guys know how sometimes you pick a guy and you really try not to hold a grudge on him, but sometimes you pick him because he has everything, stars lined up, and then he just doesn't do what he's supposed to do.
Yeah,
I kind of have that a little bit for Matthew Stafford right now. I know there's a matchup and everything, I know he's lined up, but he was like 6th in the fantasy points per game last year. This year he's coming in at 18th. I know he had Galladay hurt for a little bit. He was trying to get the ball out to Quintez Cephas for 2 weeks, and
they're running the ball a lot more too.
Exactly, they've been running the ball a lot more. That's been a running back by committee with Peterson, DeAndre Swift, Kerryon Johnson. It's been distributed so well this week or this year. It's hard for me to lock in on one guy. I definitely do see your guys' point where you're talking about Marvin Jones. I think he does have a serious boom potential. I definitely think he's worth looking at. I think Galladay is, set to have his game. He's been looking better and better each week. And part of it, I do actually boil it down to this is some of the most mature quarterback play that I've seen out of Matthew Stafford in his career. He's not honing in on one guy so much. But, with that said, my 2 guys, I like Marvin Jones and I like Hawkinson for this week. Matthew Stafford, I'm fading a little bit. Part of it's a little bit of a grudge. He hasn't been living up to his potential as much as he has been in years prior. And he's just been distributing so much, and we'll see. I mean, I really hope to see him do well, but I'm going to go ahead and fade Stafford this week.
Yeah, man. I can't fade Stafford. He just has so many options. The Atlanta Falcons are giving they're just handing out essentially like, candy, like it's trick or treat. It's Halloween, right? Might as well go to the season. I mean, dude, it's been insane. Like it is absolutely insane.
They've given up the most touchdowns. Yeah, they've given up 23 offensive touchdowns in 6 games. That's like 4 touchdowns a game. That's candy. That's exactly right. That's fantasy football touchdown candy.
Touchdown candy. Oh my God.
Touchdown candy. Come on. Get the touchdown candy. And even if they're whooping you, this is what you love about the Falcons, man. That they are snake bit because they have doubt in their heart. And so if they're whooping you, even last week, guess what? Kirk Cousins, garbage time. Justin Jefferson, Mr. Jefferson, thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Goodness gracious, you're on fire still. I'm playing him this week. I'm going to get some points residual from last week.
I don't know if that's how it works. I don't know if that's how it works.
Scott. I don't know, man. I'm pioneering. I'm a new face.
You're rolling it for points? Yeah, what was that, like T-Mobile from back in the day that used to roll over your minutes from month to month?
I'm saving my Justin Jefferson points, right? I got a lot of them. So.
That's not how it works, Scott. That's not how it works. You can't mislead the audience. No, I love Marvin Jones Jr. this week, but keep in mind, guys, he is dealing with a knee injury. So Marvin Hall has these weird weeks too where he just goes off. So maybe he's the guy if Marvin Jones Jr. misses time. Yeah. But I'm hoping that Marvin Jones Jr. can just break everybody's lineups because the Galladay is going to be up there in ownership as well. And the weird thing about Marvin Jones Jr. is he's on the field for like every single snap. He's running a play. He's running a route on almost every single passing snap. It's absolutely insane. The weird thing, though, is they're using him out of the slot this year. They're not using him on the outside. He's been used out in the slot. I mean, he had a game a couple weeks ago where he had like 5 receptions for 23 yards. That's not Marvin Jones Jr. Marvin Jones Jr. has 3 receptions for 180 yards because he takes 60 yards touchdowns to the house, right? He had the 4 touchdown game on
catch.
God, man, it drives me absolutely insane. I mean, the majority of these matchups right there are going to start Stafford. You're going to have Stafford, Galladay, and Hawkinson. And that's kind of where I want to go too. I'm going to have a lineup, at least one lineup minimum with that lineup in it. But I'm going to have a lot of shares of Marvin Jones Jr. in hopes that he busts all these other, lineups out of the water, because that could actually happen. And I think that Hawkinson is actually going to have a great week too. I think that Stafford could throw for 5 touchdowns this week, and Hawkinson is going to be part of that. I mean, I'm talking like massive, right? There should be a ton of ownership on Kelsey, a ton of ownership on Kittle, a ton of ownership on the top half of these tight ends. Dude, Hawkinson could be a sneaky good play. And honestly, you take out the Panthers game, right? If you take out the Panthers game for the Atlanta Falcons, they are allowing almost 90 yards per game to the tight end. And almost 1.5 touchdowns per game to the tight end. I think I'm going to take the over on both of those.
He's part of your 2 touchdown crew. Yeah. I mean, and then that's yeah. I did forget about the Marvin Jones knee injury, and that might be what's plaguing him this year. That's kind of kept him down. Mr. Kevin Tompkins, I love that guy. It could be a Jesse James. Like, that's a real deep contrarian throw. I like that. My man Bo McBig Time says Julio, Swift, Hawkinson. That's it for me. And he's going under. I mean, it's a big number, 56. I mean,
no, I meant the over on the Hawkinson numbers. The 90. The 90 and the touchdown and a half. I think he has 2 touchdowns and 120 yards.
Yeah, I like that.
I'm on 2 touchdowns and 120 yards a lot this week or tonight. Like I've said 2 touchdowns and 120 yards. This is probably my 6th time saying it right now.
Yeah. Well, my nipples are hard. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, my only concern is, like I said, the stars again are aligning for Stafford. He's facing, I believe, the 5th ranked rushing defense. So hopefully that forces them into exploiting the pass a little bit more, which they definitely can do. They have all the weapons in the world that you could possibly ask for from a quarterback perspective. You know, my other concern, Hawkinson, great matchup. He only has 26 yards on 4 catches over the last 2 games. Granted, 2 touchdowns. I do think they are looking for him a little bit more in the red zone. He has games of 5, 4, 7 targets in his last 3. I really hope they kind of do what they're supposed to do, start targeting Hawkinson. It always seems like the Lions, they just like doing what they aren't supposed to do on some weeks.
Well, yeah, so what you're saying is Adrian Peterson for 170 yards and 2 touchdowns, wrecking everybody's lineup.
Oh, yeah, we're getting AD 2K back.
I'm hoping that doesn't happen because I actually like Swift in this one. Guys who can actually bounce outside, or catch passes up against the Falcons are actually doing a lot better than the running backs that just run it up the middle. Honestly, those grinder running backs have not done well at all up against the Falcons. Now, do keep in mind, part of their defensive line is banged up. I think they got a couple of their front 7 on the questionable report, so that's something worth keeping an eye on. But yes, Swift is priced down to 5,400 on DraftKings. So looking at the guys that he's around, the only guy that I consider playing over him, and this is gross for me to say, I kind of like threw up in my mouth when I was actually typing this out. But the only guy that I consider playing him, that's around that price range is David Johnson. So yeah, there will be some lineups where I take Galladay out and plug Swift in, and there'll be some lineups, where I do like the whole Hawkinson, Swift, Matt Stafford stack, or the Stafford, Jones, Marvin Jones Jr., and Hawkinson stack. But yeah, I'm pretty sure I'm going to have the majority of my lineups are definitely going to have Hawkinson in there, and then I'll take shots with Swift. I'll take shots with Marvin Jones Jr. I'll take shots with Kenny Galladay. Yeah. Well, let's run it back. Let's run it back because I do think Ridley has higher upside than Jones this week. So I took Julio last week. I'm taking Calvin Ridley this week. Calvin lines up more on the right when Jones is in the game. Jones actually lines up on the left-hand side. Meanwhile, obviously Gage has the slot. So we could see those matchups with a rookie, right? Meanwhile, Jones gets – all right, I got to try and say this. Amani Oruwari.
Yeah, that was good.
That wasn't bad.
Was I close on that? I don't know.
That wasn't bad.
Yeah.
I'll take it.
Oruwari, yeah.
Oruwari. So, yeah, no, he's been actually solid on the outside so far this year. Meanwhile, the rookie's getting abused a little bit more. And I'm actually not going to touch Russell Gage at all. Darrell Roberts has been really good in the slot so far this year, very similar to Byron Jones over there, or I'm sorry, Byron Murphy. So yeah, I think that it's going to be pretty much the Calvin Ridley show this week. I mean, he's already dominated as it is, and honestly, like the Lions are doing well while defending James Robinson this past week, but I feel like that was game script heavy. So I think it could be like a run heavy game with Calvin Ridley actually getting some deep targets. How do you guys feel like it's going to go on the other side?
I agree with you 100%. I think Ridley has a lot more upside than Jones. One person that I've been looking for, it's not the greatest matchup. Lions are number 2 against tight ends, but the Falcons seem to be making a concerted effort. Oh, I see you shaking your head already. But no,
I'm shaking my head at Bo's comment. I had to say David Johnson on the last take, and it is.
Yeah, I know. So it was gross.
Yeah, we all felt uneasy after that one. But I was saying they're giving Hayden Hurst a concerted effort to try and get him involved. I was worried that wouldn't carry over from one coaching staff to another. However, it did. It does seem like they're making a concerted effort. Matt Ryan's, again, another quarterback that likes distributing the ball to multiple different receivers. But in terms of like the Julio Jones versus Calvin Ridley debate. I'm with you. I like Ridley over Jones. I agree with Russell Gage as well. But yeah, I honestly I don't love any of them. It's one of those weird ones where I kind of feel like the ball is going to be moved all over the place, and for that reason, I don't love any of them. If that makes sense.
Well, I think you have to pay up for both receivers, and so I think it's hard to love sometimes when you pay up. You want those guys to be successful. But yeah, no, I agree. I like Ridley as well. Let's make it a trifecta of Ridley. I think, yeah, he does have the better matchup. And I think what you've seen in Matt Ryan is he gets the ball downfield, and it is to Calvin Ridley. And like that's what, Chase was mentioning before. You want those high upside downfield 40, 50-yard touchdowns. Not that Julio can't do it, but he's normally bracketed. He's normally doing those like 8, 9, 15, 20-yard catches, fights to a guy. He's not running free, man. He never is getting to gazelle. He's always fighting through it like, just like a soldier. So
reminds me of Chenault a little bit.
Around. Yeah. So I do like this. Yeah.
I am fading the tight end position. They haven't allowed a single tight end to have more than 25 yards against them. And they face some decent tight ends. They face like Jared Cook, I believe. Actually, Jared Cook might have been hurt that week. Maybe they haven't faced good tight ends. Maybe I'm overlooking that position. So maybe Hayden Hurst does have a little bit of upside. But no, I'm still going to fade Hayden Hurst, I think. Well, I need to look a little bit further into that. So go follow me on Twitter, FF_intervention, and I will post after I figure out, what I'm going to do if you guys are listening to the podcast or tuning into this live show. Now, let's go ahead and bounce to the running back position because the Lions are allowing 130 yards on the ground per game to the running back position. On the ground, not even in the air. On the ground, 130 yards per game. Gurley's a play this week for me. He's averaging 4.5 red zone attempts per week. What do you guys think?
Definitely.
Scott, you want to go first or you want me to take it?
No, go for it. I was just concurring.
Yeah, I'm with you. And it seems like they're trying to finally start getting him more involved with the pass game. And it's about damn time. Like, that's part of the reason why you go out and you try and get somebody like a Todd Gurley because he is dynamic in space and he is still somebody that's hard to bring down. He doesn't look like the same guy he was pre-injury. He doesn't have quite the same balance. He doesn't have quite the same break tackle, but he's still a guy who likes to fall forward. And I think that's part of the reason why he is getting so many red zone touchdowns or red zone touches. And those red zone touches is why he's so viable. He's still a guy that gets slept on because he is not the same Todd Gurley that we know and love. He normally comes with him a lower usage rate. I think he's a great play this week.
Yeah. So my final stack for this is Matt Stafford, Marvin Jones Jr. Helps out with ownership percentages and it helps out with pricing. Hawkinson, and then I'm running it back with Ridley and Gurley. What do you guys think? Is that a winning run back or winning stack?
I think it will be. I think the only thing is, I think that a lot of people will be on it too. If you're thinking about being in the bigger, GPPs, I think that's a great smaller tournament lineup that can really, really smash. But if we probably have to vary it a little bit in those the Millie Makers and some of those bigger places. What do you think, Chase?
All you got to do is throw in Isabella, and
there you go.
Nobody has that lineup. That's a lot of risk. That's a very low floor, but a very high ceiling opportunity.
Oh, we'll have the lineup. We'll split the Millie 3 ways. So
that works. I'm down. Let's do it.
There you go.
I'm in. Why not?
All right. So I don't know if you know or not, Nathan, but at the end of this episode, we actually will do a lineup. So we're gonna hurry this up a little bit because we're already in an hour. The other episode that I'm going to be on later tonight with Paul Howdy, that actually got pushed back to 10:30. So we got a little bit of extra time, but not a lot. I wanted to go with Houston and Green Bay, right? That's who I wanted to talk about because of all the explosive plays and all the explosive plays allowed. But the pace of play combined with the plays run actually had me pivot a little bit. So I decided instead of going with that, I want to go with Tennessee and Pittsburgh. I feel like there's just more upside. Do you guys like the Houston Green Bay game or the Tennessee and Pittsburgh game?
I like the Houston Green Bay game. And while I got the mic, I also want to say Cook was out for that game. Just a heads up. Jared Cook was out for that game.
Okay. Gotcha. Yeah, I think he was. So yeah, that is something where you might want to look into Hurst, but I'll post on my Twitter after I do some research. But yeah, so what about you, Scott? Do you like Houston, Green Bay more, or do you like Tennessee and Pittsburgh more? Also, side note, I think that the ownership is going to be higher in the Houston Green Bay game.
Oh, that's I was going to tell you that the tool that I'm using right now, I'm looking at projections of Aaron Jones upwards of, and Aaron Jones might not even play. Has he been officially ruled out, or is that calf strain just kind of game time decision still?
I think it's game time decision still.
Yeah, I mean, he's still in the 20% ownership range, and Devontae Adams is in the 16%, 17% ownership range. So I think you're exactly right that you're going to be getting a lot of chalk in those matchups. And,
oh my God.
I mean, it's ridiculous.
What is Williams going to be at? What is Williams going to be at if Aaron Jones is at 20 right now?
Oh, yeah. He's going to be free. That's what 40, people are going to think.
40, 60%.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's crazy.
It's going to be nuts. So I think what you're going to have to do in some of these tournaments is you eat a little bit of chalk, but maybe the Jamal Williams chalk is one that you have to eat, but maybe you don't have to eat the Devontae Adams chalk. I think if you're going to eat all the chalk, I think you have to eat the chalk of Aaron Rodgers too. I'm not going to be playing. I'm going to have to stack up Aaron Rodgers, Devontae Adams, and Jamal Williams in a stack if I'm going to do that, because
that's so much
I have
chalk.
To have the whole. Oh, it's so much chalk, right? And that's where, like you said, I think I like this game to shoot out more to get more points, but I think there'll be less people on the Pittsburgh Tennessee game. I'm looking at the tool I have right now. None of their players are popping up in the model in the top 20, except for Derrick Henry. He's the only one so far that's come up, and that's just because he had a monster performance last week, and he's one of the best running backs in the league. He's going to be
good.
Owned. I mean,
let him be owned. Let him be owned.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
but I mean, even that he's not super owned in the tool I'm looking at. It's around 11%. So
if you're going to play Aaron Rodgers and you're going to play Jamal Williams, I'm going to pivot. I'm going to pivot over to MVS. Yeah. I'm going to let MVS destroy. I'm going to let him destroy.
He's 10% right now.
Devontae
He's 10%
Adams.
owned right now. Yeah.
I'm going to let him destroy the Devontae Adams shares. I'm going to let him cannibalize each other to an extent because I don't want to play this matchup. That's why I pivoted over and did the research for the Tennessee-Pittsburgh game and not this game, because I feel like there's going to be so high of ownership.
Let's talk about the Tennessee-Pittsburgh game.
Wait, what's up? Change on this one? I think this is one where I like MVS. I think actually, if you're going to eat the chalk on this one, I think Aaron Jones. Aaron Jones is a guy where kind of like Derrick Henry last week. If you didn't have Derrick Henry, there's a good chance you weren't kind of in the running. You needed to have him.
They're thinking that he's not going to play, so that's why Jamal Williams is going to be so highly owned, like 40 to 60% ownership.
Yeah, I mean, if Aaron Jones plays, obviously he's the guy to play. If not, I think that transitions directly over straight to Jamal. But my interest in terms of DFS is actually on the other side of the ball. I think the guy to own is actually going to be Deshaun Watson in this one. And I know the Packers defense is a little bit more stingy, but I think the Packers, they come back after losses. I think they got embarrassed a little bit last week. Aaron Rodgers, he's a dangerous guy when he gets that chip on his shoulder. I think they're going to put up a lot of points, and I think Deshaun Watson is going to have to try and match them. And on that side of the ball, I'm a big fan of people like Cook. I think Cook on that end of the ball is going to be a great play this week. Will Fuller's been on tear. I think he's going to have a higher usage rate. But Brandon Cooks is somebody that I really like this week. Brandon Cooks and Deshaun Watson.
Yeah, I think that's where most the chalk is actually going to be going. So I kind of want to stay away from this game and just hope that it takes a dive bomb and hope that Green Bay's defense ends up corralling Deshaun Watson, throughout the majority of the game. You might have some garbage time points, but essentially Aaron Rodgers isn't throwing. Deshaun Watson, ends up having a bunch of turnovers early. He might have to pass late, but that Green Bay defense still keeps him out of the end zone. Deshaun Watson only throws for 2 touchdowns. So I'll still have shares of Will Fuller. I'll still have shares of Brandon Cooks. I'll still have shares of MVS, and I'll still have shares of Devontae Adams. But I'm not going to be, and of course, the running backs as well. But I'm actually just going to hope that this game, with the pace of play, like we talked about, and the plays run per game being extremely low, I'm hoping they're just going to end up kind of canceling each other out. And this game's going to finish, instead of being the highest scoring game on the slate, be a, 21 to 28 type game. Which in that case, you're not going to have much value when it comes to stacks there. You're just going to have value independent plays. So let's go back to the Tennessee and Pittsburgh game real quick. let's talk about Tennessee and Pittsburgh. So, oh man, Tennessee and Pittsburgh, I just feel like this has more upside. And after looking into it for a second, I was like, maybe I shouldn't have picked this game. Like, this is tough. The Titans are allowing pass catchers at every position to produce. It doesn't matter if it's slot, doesn't matter if it's outside, doesn't matter left, right, tight end. It doesn't matter. They're allowing everybody to produce. So you have to try and figure out which ones to actually, attack. And I think they play a lot of zone over there in Tennessee, like a lot of zone. I was sitting there, I was looking at it, and there wasn't like a certain player that gave up a ton of points overall because they were all giving up points. But there were certain players that were getting points. And that's the receivers who play deep, but also shift to the slot. So they have that athleticism, trait, that athletic profile. Stephon Diggs, Justin Jefferson, Keelan Cole, Will Fuller, DJ Chark. Like, they all had either good or great weeks. And honestly, I wanted to be as far off Claypool as possible this week, but he fits that profile. He is that guy. And they put him all over the formation. Like, he doesn't have a spot that he actually plays. He just plays wherever they tell him to go. Could this be another Claypool week? It
could also be a Deontay Johnson week if he comes back.
I think it's a contrarian play.
Yeah.
What do you got?
What do you think, Nathan?
I'm in the same ballpark. I think because, it's looking like it's going to be a Claypool week. I think Claypool is going to have a rather high usage rate. And I really like Deontay Johnson. Deontay Johnson was one of the top 15 wide receivers in air yards prior to him getting injured. I know he's burned a lot of people because he likes to go out in the first quarter, and that's kind of a risk they kind of just need to take with Deontay Johnson. He was a full participant in practice. I think he's going to be back this week. And they do play a lot of zone. And I think he's a guy where, because the focus is going to be on Juju, Connor, and Claypool, I think Deontay Johnson is going to be a guy who can really burn that defense.
Yeah, and I'll give another contrarian play to that for Nathan is that if you're ever going to play Juju, he's at 5,500. You know what I mean? Like that is way priced down. So he could be a contrarian play. Right now, the ownership on him is around 4%, which is nothing. You're not really by yourself there with Juju. I don't think I'm going to put him in a million maker lineup, but he'll definitely be in some of my tournament builds where I'm stacking, or counter stacking this game, maybe running. Also, by the way, no one is owning any of AJ Brown at all. AJ Brown's got like 2.5% ownership, 3% ownership. So there's a lot of players.
I'm about to talk about him, baby.
Whew, I'm getting hot and heavy over here with the ownership numbers. Sorry.
No, you're good. You're good, man. You're good, dude. You can get ahead of me on this. That's fine. It's all right. I'm just saying I'm going to talk about it. No, so
go for it, man. Floor is yours, good sir.
No, I like Claypool a lot. But I might play Deontay Johnson in the same lineups that I'd be playing Claypool in and just swap them in and out and then upgrade at wide receiver. I think Deontay Johnson's cheaper than Claypool, right? He's got to be.
Oh, yeah.
4,200 versus 57.
Yeah, so I would end up putting Deontay Johnson and upgrading at a different position. But the thing that I really think could actually happen this week, and I don't really want to see it because I don't like this player, but Eric Ebron. Like, he's a master of drops, but he's also that boomer bust guy we saw at the Colts, right?
Right.
His ownership is going to be nothing.
I'm sorry. I was going to say, I keep thinking he's going to fall into that Vince McDonald role and just where he's that big red zone target. And he just hasn't been that guy yet.
Vance McDonald hasn't fallen into the Vance McDonald role.
Man. People need to fall into their roles.
The Titans have given up a touchdown in 4 of 5 contests to the tight end. Meanwhile, outside of Fant, they haven't faced a very good tight end at all. Like, their tight end matchups have been terrible.
Wait a second. Darren Fells is a great tight end.
Yeah, I don't love Darren Fells. He's not top 12.
No, he's not.
He's like 15 or something right there, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think what you're thinking in this game, and I'm thinking it too, is that this game kind of shoots. And you get that same game that we got last week with Houston, going back and forth, kind of pass after touchdown, after run, after big play. I'd love to see that. Ebron could hit. He could. I don't know, though. I think it's going to be more Claypool or Deontay Johnson. That's just where my leaning is. And don't forget that, they can have James Conner, catching balls as well if they need to. If Big Ben needs an outlet underneath Claypool is going to be good, but I think I also like Connor as well.
So Juju Smith-Schuster, I want to talk about this real quick, and then I'm going to move on to the next player. Juju Smith-Schuster, they've ran the same play with Pittsburgh, and I don't watch all of Pittsburgh plays. I catch a few of them here and there, but Pittsburgh has ran this play, and I've seen it 3 times now, and it's the play that Juju scored on, where Ben Roethlisberger fades out right, Juju runs across the formation to the left. Unfortunately, Ben Roethlisberger hasn't hit him since the first game, but he's been open on all 3 occasions that I've seen. So I think that Juju could be in line for a touchdown or maybe 2, but Juju Smith-Schuster really scares me, so I'm going to stay away from him this week.
He's real contrarian. Yeah, he's not a good play.
He only has 1 game over 50 yards this season as well, and that terrifies me.
There's just so many other options in this offense, especially with Deontay. Johnson coming back.
He's a blocking wide receiver. That's why he's there. He blocks. He's really good.
I can't wait till he ends up with a different team. Can't wait. All right, so James Conner is a play from this week, and I don't normally, let James Conner slip through my lips like that, but James Conner he's a fun play this week, I think. Seeing an increased workload, right? He's rewarding the Steelers. Like, he might have low ownership because the Titans over the past 2 weeks have been significantly better against the run, but they played TJ Yeldon. They played David Johnson over the past 2 weeks. They allow the second most explosive runs on the ground. James Conner is that guy.
Yeah.
And on the other side of things, we talked about, how, AJ Brown, right? We've got Joe Hayden, who's been great, up against the wide receivers. He's going to be a matchup with Corey Davis, most likely. They play the same side of the field. Meanwhile, Cameron Sutton, who came out of nowhere to replace Mike Hilton over there in the slot, and he was actually great. He allowed 1 reception on 5 targets and an interception over there in the slot last week. He was insane. They were trying to target him. He's like, fuck you guys. So AJ Brown over there gets Nelson. Oh, man, he gets Nelson.
Yeah.
And Nelson has allowed 197 yards and 3 touchdowns. This is going to be an AJ Brown week. This is going to be AJ Brown, right? What do you guys think about Connor and AJ Brown?
So I want to touch on Connor real quick. Connor's had 100 yards rushing in the last 3 of his last 4 games. In each of those 3 games, he's averaged more than 5 yards per carry, 5.1, 6.1, and 6.6. Touchdown in each of his last 4 games. I think Connor is a great play this week. He's a guy that you kind of have to own. In terms of A.J. Brown, I definitely see the potential with him, but the Steelers do like providing some coverage over the top, and I think they're pretty good at limiting big play opportunities. So with that pass rush, I think they're really going to limit the ability for him to get deep. So some of those bigger plays I don't always see as being available.
Are you talking about AJ Brown?
Yeah.
So he's a big yak guy. He doesn't really take, deep receptions to the house. His average air yards per target depth is actually kind of low. He's a big tackle breaker. He's a big physical dude. So I think that's something where he could take advantage of against Nelson. Nelson has missed a lot of tackles so far this season. They are they're 25th, by the way, in big plays allowed to the wide receiver position. So they actually have allowed some big plays.
Well, I think what you're getting is with those blitzes and with the pressure.
Single coverage, baby.
Getting single coverage. And I think that's what happens. What you're going to get in the game is if the defensive coordinators have their way, you could get a shootout. Because what you're going to get is pressure. You're going to get pick sixes. You're going to get fumbles. You're going to get – the game's going to have to just go back and forth because the game's going to be one of those awesome games.
Short field position.
Right. If you're playing conservative, though, if it's 3rd and 4 and Derrick Henry's running for 3 yards, 5 yards, 3rd and 4, 3rd and 3, manageable, little play action, a little dink for gain of 6, then they're moving. That kind of game could just crush everybody, so you really want flying around, big plays, people getting sacks, strip sacks, Watt brothers everywhere. That's what you want.
And we're gonna let everybody waste their money on Derrick Henry, right? Because the Steelers have been an absolute monster up against the running back.
Still trap.
Yeah, only 2 running backs have had over 40 yards up against the running back. And that took Miles Sanders, breakaway run. I want to say it was 73 yards, right? Was it 73 yards that he had on that one massive run that made his entire day?
75, somewhere in that range.
Yeah, and he only had 83 yards total outside of that. So really, if we take away that one, there's only one running back to have over 40 yards rushing up against this Steelers defense. So Henry, he's a beast in his own right, but I'm not chasing last week's points, and he's so expensive. It scared me away. Let them go ahead and chase those points, right?
Yeah, let them eat their Henry cake this week.
Yeah, 100%. You know, kind of like how we see this as being a sneaky shootout. I always say about shootouts, there's always a dam within the game, and to make it a shootout, that dam has got to break. The one thing that scares me about this matchup is I kind of see part of me sees that both of these teams, they just want to run the ball sometimes. And at some point, if that dam breaks, there's going to be some great value within these players that are going to have a little bit lower usage rate and still could put up a ton of points.
Well, the dam could break throughout the running game as well over there with the Steelers, right? Because of all those breakaway runs that the Titans allow.
Yeah.
So that's already part of it. So all they have to do is stop Henry completely, and the Steelers go up by 2 touchdowns, let's just say, and force the Titans to pass. So we're going to get out of the whole stack mindset, and we're going to talk about some sneaky plays. Sneaky. Players that might be right in your face, right? They might be right there in front of you, but you might not realize how valuable they actually are because they don't have the little green number next to it that says 31st up against, the defense on this position, whatever the case is. So we're going to end up going to these plays who might not have a stack option necessarily. They could have a stack option, but they might not. And plays that we might actually want to, pivot towards or add to our lineups. And so if you guys didn't like any of the options that we had at quarterback, I want to offer up Derek Carr. Okay. And this is confusing, right? This is not something that we should actually get behind because Tampa Bay's been great up against the quarterback, right? And they blitz a lot. They blitz on 41.4% of the snaps. That's third in the NFL. Derek Carr is going to be without his left tackle. But check this out. Derek Carr has a 66.7 completion percentage while being blitzed. He has 5 touchdowns and 1 interception while being blitzed. His yards per attempt are at 9.6 while being blitzed. And his passer rating is 123.5 while being blitzed. You can't leave Waller. You cannot leave Ruggs. You cannot leave Aguilar. And that pains me to say so, but you can't leave those guys in single coverage because Derek Carr is really accurate and he likes to get the ball out of his hands real fast. Like, oh my God, like Derek Carr. This is like the evil genius type lineup. Derek Carr could be a great play this week. What do you guys think?
I like Derek Carr.
It's weird.
I like Derek Carr for the reasons that you said. The things that concern me is he's going to be without a lot of his offensive line. So, if you want to take some of the quarterbacks we mentioned earlier in the show, I don't think you could go wrong with that. I think another person that's going to have a lot of opportunity in this game is going to be the guy in the slot, Hunter Renfrow. I think he's going to kind of be his dump-off guy for a lot of those blitzes because that blitz is going to be getting there quick on Sunday. I think he's going to be that short reception guy where he's just going to be getting him in volume.
Scott?
Yeah, I like that. It's a really good little sneaky play. We're talking about sneaky plays. I don't think Ruggs is sneaking up on anybody. I mean, he's not a sneaky guy. But his hands, I want you guys to understand, his hands are like you take one of my hand and then you put like another hand with it, and then that's his hand. His hands are some of the biggest in the wide receiver category. You got him and Michael Thomas with the biggest hands in the league.
Henry
Ruggs can fight for balls. Yeah, he can fight for balls. Yeah,
I was not aware
he's
of
got
that.
Big old hands. Yeah. Well, here's the thing. I wasn't either. And my partner in crime, Mike Collins on the Fantasy Football Millionaires, he's got the Big Hands Club, and he examines their hands on the player profiler database. Thanks,
like
shout out
Odell
Roto
Beckham
Underworld.
size?
Yeah, like bigger. And it was on display a couple weeks ago when he came back off the injury, and they threw a ball downfield, and they both went up, and Ruggs just rested away. So I think Ruggs downfield, he's my 2 touchdown guy this week. If you're going to go on this journey,
I like it.
I think you're getting Renfrow definitely underneath a bunch. But I think when they go over the top, I think Ruggs is a bad man, and so maybe he doesn't get 2 touchdowns over the top, but I could see him getting 1. If they get single coverage, they put Waller down the seam on the other side and they draw that safety over. I'm not scheming for Gruden, but that would be my play. I would bring Ruggs on a drag across as they went Waller down the seam so that he would take the safety and then he could just cut across the formation. That's how I would do it. And I think he could get a touchdown. That Juju play you were talking about, Kyle.
I think it's a Ruggs week, but I will say that I'm not convinced that any receiver is going to have that high of value this week. I just like Derek Carr. Like I like Derek Carr to run it out solo because he could spread it around. You have Aguilar, like we already talked about. You have Aguilar, and then Nathan brought up Renfro, and then you have, of course, Ruggs, and then you have Waller, and then you have Josh Jacobs who's getting targets too. So I think that Carr, you could actually roll up by himself, and he could actually win you a tournament.
5,400, so cheap.
Normally, when you run guys out, like as a solo option, it's only like a 13% chance of winning. But yeah, you could stack like some of the best options with him, and it could absolutely go off. The thing is my issue with him is he could be facing Jameel Dean, who I believe has been really good. I think Sean Murphy-Bunting slides to the slot if I remember correctly, and Jameel Dean plays outside. He's been really good so far this season. Meanwhile, Carlton Davis, I think he actually shadows the wide receiver one. He's one of the few guys that still does that. And he's only allowed 18 completions on 41 attempts and only 2 touchdowns with 3 interceptions. So I'm a little bit concerned.
But he has given up an average of 13.5 fantasy points per game. So you're getting at least,
But that's not something that you want.
No, but that's, compared to the other, if you want to talk about, Sean Murphy-Bunting giving up 6.8 and Jameel Dean giving up 9.4, that's the odds. Or that guy, even though he's played really well and defends all those passes, he's up against the better guys each week too. Let's put it that way. So
the thing was Sean Murphy-Bunting hasn't faced very strong slot guys, I don't think, because he's only seen 17 attempts up against them. And they've had 14 completions. Meanwhile, they've allowed on those 14 completions 211 yards and 2 touchdowns. So I just don't think he's getting attacked. And I think that this week he'd get attacked, with Renfro. He'd get attacked with Waller. But, that's regardless of BC, we still all agree on Carr for the most part, right?
Yeah, Carr, I think he can play a lot.
Yeah, kind of like, the Las Vegas doesn't have a defined wide receiver one in that offense. It's kind of just a mush. Like Chase keeps saying, Derek Carr distributes that ball to multiple different people. There's no one wide receiver that stands out as like, hey, that's the guy, because there is Aguilar, Renfro, there's Ruggs, there's still Brian Edwards lost somewhere in that mix. There's still Waller, there's Jacobs. He distributes the ball so well. There is no clear wide receiver one for him to really truly shadow this week. I would kind of think he might take on the bigger Brian Edwards, but
I think Brian Edwards is out. Is he in?
Say that again?
Is Brian Edwards in this week? Brian Edwards is still out. He's still out.
Back.
Nope, he's out.
He's out?
Yep. So it's just going to be a clusterfuck for the most part. Let's just agree on that. All right. Yeah. So we got to kind of run through these to an extent. We can still talk about them a little bit, but let's try and get through these. Herbert has a great matchup with Jacksonville. He has 4 or 5 more fantasy points per game than the 3 guys ahead of him. And Jacksonville's, a team that you can score against. Great matchup. If Allen's in, if he plays, you can stack him. You guys like Herbert?
I do. He was actually somebody I wrote about in my Fantasy Football Astronauts article this week. It's a great matchup. He's doing really well. He's going to have some big play opportunities. He started getting the ball out to Mike Williams, who's one of the best deep ball receivers in the league right now. I like him a lot.
Incredible.
He is. The way he contorts his body when the ball's in the air,
but that's also why he's always hurt. Because he lands terribly every time. He makes some amazing catches, but damn, does he bang up his body? Yeah. Scott, is Herbert a play?
Yeah, I think he is. My only issue with Herbert is, I think there's quarterbacks who are priced lower, like you said, like Carr's $1,000 lower than Herbert. And then Joe Burrow is, 900 less too. So I think there's some other guys for me that are a little shinier in that range to get up to Herbert, but I don't think he's a bad play. I don't think he is. I think it depends on Keenan Allen being in, and I want to hear those reports. I want to hear how he's doing before the game, before I trust him. Here's the downgrade I have on Herbert. We haven't seen a passing back emerge with Eckler out. I don't think you can replicate Eckler. I don't think you can, he's a unique player. He really has a great skill set. Yeah. We need to see it happen. Well, we need to see it. We need to see it, every week. And so if we do this week,
it's pissing me off. It's like, what are you guys doing?
Yeah. You know what?
He needs to develop. I understand that, but get him in the game.
Anthony Lynn is a conservative coach. in mindset. You can just tell he doesn't want to turn over the reins of just letting him throw the ball over the field. I think he's doing a really good job, though, and being effective. He's a top 20 QB. He is. He's scoring more points than Cam Newton, scoring more points than Ben Roethlisberger, Drew Brees, Matt Stafford. So, I mean, he's doing a good job so far.
All right, Gibson and the Washington defense stack. I called it last week. I said Kenny Drake was going to have his big breakout week. The Dallas defense allows running backs up the middle, but they're really good at stopping guys on the outside, pass catching running backs. We saw that happen this past week. So I think that Gibson with Dallas and then stacking that Washington defense is great. I'm sticking with the same team, right? Just because – oh, wait, this was actually a previous one. This is the Jacksonville game once again. Sorry, I skipped over a guy. Joshua Kelly should get working in this one. The Chargers will be winning in my estimation, and they don't even know if Jackson's going to play. So, guy's just like a giant injury bug pretty much. I want to go with Jackson here originally, but I'm switching it over, and I'm going Joshua Kelly. Do you guys disagree?
I don't disagree at all. I really like your point about Antonio Gibson, too. I think the matchups there, along with that defense as well, I think the Red Rifle, Andy Dalton, I think he definitely provides some turnover opportunities there. And Antonio Gibson's is $500 cheaper than he was last week. So for his potential, I think that's great.
Yeah, no, that's a great call there, Nathan, with the cheaper price tag. And his ownership right now is at 3%. And so people are scared of him after he kind of laid an egg the last couple of weeks, and he did drop in price. But I think what you're talking about is that matchup. Is the Dallas Cowboys defense is terrible. So I think that $5,000 price tag is
they're great
is
against pass catching running backs, by the way. They're great at pass catching running backs.
Well, we thought that they were going to turn Antonio Gibson into CMC Light, and they've been turning J.D. McKissick into CMC Light. So I think the play is Gibson on the ground, and you know what? It's interesting in that price range. Kelly is around the 5.5%, 6% owned. So for $100 less, you're getting less ownership too. I kind of like those little deals for $100, in those little ranges. So,
all right, McLaurin versus Dallas, and I'm running back with Gallup. Washington is 28th in explosive pass play percentage allowed. Only had 2 catches last week with Gallup, but saw 6 targets, dropped 1 in the end zone, and then, of course, Dalton missed him multiple times in the end zone. I'm still pissed off about this. I really don't want to talk about this matchup very much. So, real quick, is McLaurin to play and is Gallup to play? I don't want to hear your breakdown. I'm pissed off, and I don't want to hear it.
Yes and yes.
Yes.
Nathan, I'm sure Scott knows about it because I probably vented to him and Bo. But yeah, I had Gallup in a lineup that would have won me $20,000 or $10,000, something like that. And Gallup, all Gallup needed to do was outscore. All he needed to do was to outscore Christian Kirk, and he had the opportunity to do so time and time and time and time and time again, and he didn't do it, and I'm pissed off about it. And yeah, my Patreons would have won money, because if you subscribe to patreon.com/fantasy intervention, you get 3 of my lineups, and that was one of my lineups, and I'm still pissed off about it. So moving on, I kind of like Deebo Samuel this week, and I'm going to lower my voice here in a second. Whew. Oh, man.
Tell us how you really feel, Chase.
I've been against Gallup since week 1. He burned me in week 1. I almost had that 8-bet parlay until that offensive pass interference.
Oh, man. I kind of like Deebo Samuel this week. People are still nervous about playing him. $5K. That's all he's at. He's down there with Edelman. He's down there with Cole Beasley. Is Deebo Samuel a play this week?
Yes. Yeah. He's one of the most athletic wide receivers / running backs in the league. So, yes.
Who are the Patriots going to take away? The Patriots going to take away George Kittle, right? So that's going to open up the receiving game. I mean, you can play Ayuk, but I prefer Deebo Samuel.
Yeah, well, you talked about earlier, Nathan was referencing Kyler Murray's depth of target and how far he was getting the ball downfield. There was a negative depth of target at one point for Jimmy Garoppolo last week. He was just throwing the ball behind himself. There was multiple laterals that could have happened. I think they do a lot of those plays this week as well. They're not going to get the ball super downfield on the Patriots. I think they keep the game in front of them. I think Jimmy G had over 200 and 70 yards passing, and then like 230 of it was yak. It was crazy. It was just a yak fest. So you're not going to get that much passing. They are going to kind of squelch George Kittle in the middle of the field. And I think you're right. Leaves Debo and then Brandon Ayuk as well as a dart throw in some of these GPP tournaments. I think both those guys are just young, athletic, strong, quick, fast, hurdling, knocking guys over. I like them both.
And he's in motion so much, he's just hard to match up against. Whoever you put him on, he might run off to the edge of the field. You got to trail him all the way. He's a matchup problem. He's not he's super athletic. The play he made last week where he was almost down, wasn't quite down, broke free for another 20 yards. He's a super freak, and I'm really excited to see what he does this week.
And we all know, by the way, how Kyle Shanahan gives Bill Belichick fits up until the fourth quarter. For some reason, Kyle Shanahan is an absolute beast when it comes to play calling up against, Bill. So I think that he's going to give him fits. So on to the next guy, Fant at 4,800 for the tight ends. He's the fourth most expensive tight end, right? But the drop off from Waller to Fant is 1,300 less. Like you have the top end guys that are like 61, 65, and 68 or something like that. And then you have this like significant drop off down to 48. So Fant, people might be looking at him as like the fourth most tight end, but not realize that he's 1,300 less. So I think he could be a sneaky good play. What do you guys think?
I mean, definitely. I think he is going to be the focal point of Drew Lock in that offense. He was to the other quarterbacks before he was injured. He's just a man beast. I think he would qualify for Pete Overzet's grown ass man club for sure.
Yeah, he's a play.
Yeah, I'm with you guys. I think he's a big play. Kansas City has given up quite a few yards to tight ends this year. They're coming in at 21st ranked against tight ends, giving up a couple of big games. The only thing that scares me with him, it's going to be his first game back from injury. On the pro side, that's going to lower his usage rate. On the other end, with ankle injuries, sometimes they don't come back with that same shiftiness. And for a guy who's big in yards after the catch, he's actually tied for second in the tight end position in yards after the catch. You don't know how that's going to come into play. So that's only my concern with Noah Fant.
So we're going to hop into the deep flyers really quick, and then we're going to do our lineup. We're going to see chalk with Jamal Williams, Gio Bernard, right? They're both playable, but you're going to see chalk if those guys miss time. I think Mixon's already ruled out. Meanwhile, Jamal Williams is right there. Aaron Jones is right there. You see at least 20% ownership for both guys. I think it's going to be closer to 50%. So Bo brought this up earlier. And if Aaron Jones misses time, I'd recommend pivoting over to Dylan over Jamal Williams. I think that Dylan's going to have way less ownership. I think he's going to be right around 5 to 10%. And he's still going to get like that goal line carry. I mean, we saw his breakaway run ability last week. He had to run over 20 yards. And honestly, Jamal Williams can only handle so much. So I'm taking a shot. On Dylan. I think the Green Bay coaching staff and the front office is drooling to get, A.J. Dillon out there to see what they have, to see if they can let go of Aaron Jones in the 2021 season. Do you guys like
quad boy?
Yeah, quad boy. Whereas his quads are bigger than his freaking head, like 3 times the size.
Quads are ridiculous.
Dude, when he was lining up for that 40 time, oh my god.
Oh yeah. Dude, I showed my wife, non sequitur, I showed my wife the clip of the athlete a couple years ago who was running the 40, the lineman, and he had a wardrobe malfunction, and his
it's like Chris Jones
came out.
Chris Jones?
Yeah, the hoo-ha was out, and it was just flapping and wapping. I don't want to say, anyway, his schlong, whatever you want to say, his meat, what he was packing, it was out.
His penis.
His pang. Yeah, whatever you want to call it. But yeah, I mean, it's a great story. I just had to segue into that. Sorry. Back to fantasy football. You get one of those a show.
Nathan, Dylan?
I'm not sold on Dylan. I think there's an upside to him.
Well, that's what's perfect for tournaments.
I know. He's going to come in with a super low usage rate, but I mean, even last week when a blowout, he had a 16% snap share. They quit sending some of those running backs in. He scares me. You know, he scares me.
He should. It's a deep flyer. This is the guys that should scare you. Deep flyers are not sexy positions. They're not sexy guys that you want to play, but you might have to play them to fit them in your lineup, or it might be a cheat code.
You know,
these guys should always scare
flyer,
you.
I like him. I'll give you that. As a deep flyer, I like him. He has more upside than a lot of other people at that price point.
These guys should always scare you. They should always scare you 100%. Now, Bell at 4,400 versus Denver. He's another guy that should scare you, right?
Yeah.
But can he break?
Me. What?
Can he break? Can he end up giving you big production? Does he have the upside?
Yeah, I think he definitely can. There's a lot of potential there. They kind of seem like he's going to be eased in a little bit, so that does concern me a little bit.
Because he's going to get all the goal line carries. Goal line carries you don't need to study for.
Yeah, you don't need to study. You just got to run straight ahead. I think his best use, though, is as a pass catcher, though. So I think eventually that's kind of where they want to get him integrated. And with where they're at positional-wise, I don't think they're going to try and rush anybody into that offense.
What are you doing over there? Not you, Nathan. Scott. Sounds like a damn concert. All right. So I'm sitting there and I just got your message on the private chat. My bad. Sorry about that. All right. So
concert.
No, Zach Moss is the only other guy. Zach Moss is a guy that I feel really confident, playing as a flyer. He's at 4,200 up against the Jets, who've been absolutely terrible. It could be a blowout. Zach Moss could get his workload in. Right? Wrong? Right?
Yes. Right.
Yeah. No, he definitely could.
Okay, so those are my flyers for the week. I normally have like 6 or 7. I only had 3 for this week, so that's all the time that I had. So we're going to go ahead and go in the share screen, and we're going to go ahead and build a roster. This is the moment you guys have all been waiting for. If you guys want to share this, by the way, go on to Twitter and go share this. Let everybody know that we're building a roster. We can take. This is the moment, man. This is the moment that everybody wants to be here for. We're sharing a roster.
We're giving out free money.
Exactly. And yeah, if we win big, then we'll split it 3 ways. But if not, then if we win like $10, I just keep it all. So that's how it is. Sorry, guys. It's my money.
That sounds good.
That's fair. So you shoot for second place. Then you don't have to split it.
Oh, man. I can't with you guys. All right. Nathan, what's your tag? Go ahead and let everybody know where to find you. This is actually a perfect time. Let everybody know where to find you. Start with your Twitter handle.
You can follow me at @N_McGuire95. I also run my own podcast. It's called Push the Chips. I try and get out 2 episodes every Tuesday and Saturday. So if you guys want more content, and if these guys don't let me back on, then that's another way you can go find me.
All right, Scott, what you got, man? Where to find you?
You can find me at NimbleWNumbers on Twitter and also NimbleWNumbers.com. And then I got my guy, Bo McBigtime, at Bo_McBigtime, and he sells hot box batch hot sauce. Yeah. And you can find his work also at NimbleWNumbers.com. And you can find his hot sauce at hotboxbatch.com. That shit is fucking hot. Get some. I'm tweeting it out right now, and I'm currently building a DraftKings lineup with Chase. I'm going in for my man Nathan.
I like it. We're
gonna put this out.
Are we ready to build?
I'm ready to go.
We are. I think we're ready to rock.
All right, so we got to start out with a stack, right? We're not going to run out solo Derek Carr. It's a good thing to do to run out a solo Derek Carr, but we're not going to do this for this purpose because we like to stack. And I want to know what you guys think. What was your favorite stack that we talked about?
I think the top upside's got to be Kyler Murray.
All right, Kyler Murray.
Different things he has available and the ways that we could save a little bit money on that wide receiver position. I think you really got to lean Kyler Murray for this
God,
one.
You're making me nervous. I feel like I'm putting it on the line, going with Andy Isabella, not DeAndre Hopkins, but we're doing it. We're going hard.
Let's go.
What do you think? You think we should go with Kyler Murray and Isabella? Or do you think we should go with Stafford?
Yes.
Kyler Murray and
I think we should go with Kyle. Yeah. Yeah, no, I think we should do that.
All right, we're running it back. Are we running it back with DK Metcalf, or do you guys want to take the chance to eliminate and build a sick roster outside of that and go with either Freddie Swain or David Moore?
I got some other positions I believe we could save some money on, and at least for right now, I don't know about you guys. I still think we can go Lockett on this one.
I don't, dude. Lockett's not going to be a thing this week. I am completely against
Face
Lockett.
is saying, what if we do a meet in the middle and we do a Calvin Ridley? What do you think about that?
Well, Calvin Ridley was already going to be a run back. Wait, no, Calvin Ridley's in a different game. Yeah, we're definitely going to do Calvin.
He's in a
Ridley.
different game.
Yeah, we're definitely going to do Calvin Ridley.
Running it back. I mean, I think Moore stands to benefit the most if you're going to pick out of Moore or Swain.
We don't have to. We can go Chris Carson and then wait to see, something else. But we want to highlight the guys that we've been talking about in this episode so far.
I do like Chris Carson a lot, actually. To me, that's a guy I'd have on my side. But
if we think this is going to be a high enough scoring game, we need another player from Seattle, right? Should we wait, or should we go ahead and go after David Moore?
We can wait and just see what happens. We can wait. We can pencil David Moore in. How much is he at, by the way? What's his cost?
Hey, he's like nothing. He's like 31.
Ooh, I like that. Okay, so let's keep that in mind.
David Moore's at 31.
Nathan, was there somebody you were thinking?
I'm sorry, what?
Should we go ahead and throw in Alvin Kamara?
Yeah.
Huh? We didn't highlight him, but
for that.
We don't need to highlight Kamara. Highlights himself.
Dude, he's at 30 points per game right now. And
he's ridiculous. Michael Thomas is out.
This is where Christian McCaffrey was sitting last year, and it took him 8 weeks to get up to 10 grand. You have to play Alvin Kamara up until he hits 10K. You
Emmanuel
have to.
Sanders is out as well.
Yeah. Yeah, so, I think Alvin Kamara's a lock.
Okay, cool. So, all right.
So now put more in. Now put more in and see where we're at.
Do you want to put more in, or do you want to go for the Gibson and Washington defense stack? And see where we're at?
We can do that.
So if we go more, we're sitting at 48, which is good because the defense is going to be like 25. So that will put us up at right around 55 for the rest of the lineups. But I kind of wanted to see what Gibson with the defense stack is going to be.
Put it in. Yeah, we have it. We can put it in.
Or we just do a Washington defense stack play by itself and go with DeAndre Swift. That could be another option.
I like your Gibson play. What do you think, Nathan?
I like Gibson more than Swift this week.
Ooh, okay. So that's in there. So we got 5K left per player. And that could actually, we have to play the tight end and see where we're at with the cash, right?
Yeah. I mean, you talked about some of the plays. Kelsey's a great play. Hawkinson is a great play.
You want to play Hawkinson and see where the wide receiver position ends up? Because that should give us right around 5K. So that's really not going to make a difference.
Another person that I think is a sneaky play that we didn't get to talk about for the tight end position, he's one of those budget guys, is Drew Sample. He hasn't done much, but they're facing Cleveland. Last time they faced Cleveland, they put up combined 65 points, 9 targets, 7 catches for Drew Sample.
I played Drew Sample every single week. Every week. This is the first week I think I'm going to refuse to play Drew Sample.
That's your grudge player?
I've played him every week. Every freaking week. I picked him up at the Scott Fish Bowl. I have him everywhere. I can't play Drew Sample.
What do you think?
I can't do it. It hurts. It literally you just got me soft. I am literally my dick's just hanging low right now.
You put Hawkinson in and see what that does for it. If it fluffs it up a bit, what would that look like?
Hawkinson's going to put us at 49.
Okay, so now let's go to the wide receiver levels of 49 and see who we're dealing with in that range.
We have the hit. We have the hit of. Oh man, I can't play T. Higgins either.
Man,
we have.
Well, there's just too many options over there for the Bengals.
Well, you do have.
Henry Ruggs is the big time play here. That's the upside.
Yeah, you have Ruggs
Gallup.
there.
We got Gallup. I think Mike Williams could still see some opportunities this week as well. I think
Mike Williams is going to be up against Henderson this week. I don't like that matchup.
Could you scroll down a little bit, Chase, just to see who's kind of in maybe a little bit lower range? Okay.
I don't like any of these.
Really.
AJ agrees.
No, I'm not
really liking this price.
I think the biggest.
And Marvin Jones Jr. of course, but I think that's too risky. I think you'd be safer with Ruggs.
I think Ruggs would be the play just for me in this, with given his upside and what he can do. But I mean,
what if we back it down?
Get clamped on.
Let's back it down real quick.
I think Marvin Jones would be the play for me out of those options.
Let's back it down. What else? What was the tight end that we highlight? We highlighted. Oh, Ebron. Let's just check out Ebron and see what that leaves us with. Because Ebron does have that upside, and it's a terrible floor. And I hate his floor. And I hate Ebron. But this just seems like the right week. And Crowder busted Buffalo's ass. Meanwhile, McLaurin up against Dallas. That's an amazing matchup. And Claypool. We can play Claypool. But also, we might as well go with the stack of Ben Roethlisberger if that's the case. DJ Moore up against New Orleans, although you could see the Jackrabbit this week. What are you guys seeing on here? And don't tell me T. Higgins.
No.
Okay, I like McLaurin. I do like Claypool. I think both of those are viable options. Those are the two that I would pick from this list.
McLaurin's matchup proof, and this is an amazing matchup.
I think McLaurin is a smash play. I think he really is in this. If we're going to go to Ebron, only thing is now you have McLaurin, Gibson, and the Washington football team. So we are going heavy bone with it with Washington. That's the only,
That's fine because Gibson at his price, if they score 21 points and two of those are to Gibson, one of those is to McLaurin, or two of those to McLaurin, one of those to Gibson, either way, you're still going to hammer home. Meanwhile, the Washington football team could have a pick six. So 28
that looks
7, 28 to 12, or 28 to 14.
Yeah.
That's in the range of outcomes, isn't it?
Yeah. I think I do like that. That is a nice ceiling, especially if you look at your first three players, you've got just
So you have four players that are averaging over 20 points. So that's already 80. And if you get big week out of Isabella, that's another 20 points. So that's 120. You get a 2 touchdown week out of McLaurin, with whatever yards, that's another 20 points. So that's 140. Eric Ebron, 2 touchdowns, that's another 15. So that's 155. Gibson would have to get 2 touchdowns as well. That's where, the upside right there is kind of capped with McLaurin and the Washington defense.
Yeah, that's you're in the game. That's my only thought.
Well, actually, Isabella would be 30, and Calvin Ridley could put up 32. So that's where it boosts. But we need 200-point upside. Does the other matchup that we had with who was it? Hawkinson. Does Hawkinson actually offer that much more upside and then pivoting down to Henry Ruggs?
I mean, if you
does offer more upside, that's a tournament winner, actually. The other one, that's not the one that I just put out was not a tournament winner. You're right. We should go Hawkinson and we should go Henry Ruggs.
Well, I mean that's my thought, but we can put this lineup in ourselves after this and modify it if we want a little bit too.
So Murray has upside of 35, 40 points, right? So it's 40. And then we have Chris Carson with probably 20 points. So that's 60, 90. Isabella's 20. So that's 110. And then we have Calvin Ridley, who could be 30.
25. Yeah, 25, 30. Yeah, so you're about 140.
Yeah, this is a way higher upside lineup. This is a tournament lineup right here. This is where we want to go.
Yeah.
Do you agree, Nathan?
What do you think, Nathan?
I like it. I mean, the upside is definitely there. And the floor is definitely there, and that's why these things always scare me. But there's real potential with this one. I like it.
Can we check the defenses and see if there's any other defensive plays in that 2,600 range? I haven't really checked the defense and scouted them too hard this week, but
there's really nothing out there too much. But I can't stay on too long because I got this other episode I got to hop onto. So yeah, we're looking at Titans, we're looking at Atlanta, Las Vegas. It's not pretty.
Ugh, no, that's not pretty.
I don't know why Washington's priced down so low, but they are. Anyways, guys, I appreciate y'all for coming on.
I like it.
We're entering this in. It's locked in. Let's go.
Do it. Let's win some money.
Now let's split 3 ways.
I'm down. All right, guys, let everybody know where to find you one more time, and let's get the fuck out of here.
All right, you can find me at _McGuire95 on Twitter.
You can find me at NimbleWNumbers on Twitter. Appreciate you, Chase. Definitely want to come back again, sir.
Yeah, thank you for having me on. It was a great time. I hope you guys have me back as well.
No, of course. We're doing big things over there at Fantasy Intervention. Big things, right? So make sure you guys check us out over there at joinourcircle_ on Twitter. We're also on Facebook at Fantasy Intervention. We're on Patreon, patreon.com/fantasy intervention. And you can find just all of our stuff over there at linktr.ee/fantasy intervention. Once again, that's linktr.ee/fantasy intervention. Thank you guys, by the way, for joining our circle for tonight. Yeah, love you guys. Thank you all for letting us intervene with your fantasy football life. We're out.
Peace.
End broadcast.